What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Moaa's monthly podcast, where we'll be coming to you each month, sharing the happenings around Moaa, discussing the hot tea, sharing the stage with our guests, and closing out with our mic drop thoughts. I'm Shatara Stokes.
I'm Jaslyn Eddings.
And I am Devon Robb. Welcome to the cookout.
For our Moaa Minute today, I wanted to remind and encourage everyone to register for Moaa's Symposium in June. This year, Symposium is being held in Orlando, Florida, starting with the Moaa celebration on June 10th and a full day of engaging sessions on June 11th. We look forward to seeing everyone there.
All right, now it's time for the hot tea segment. All right, so with it being March, of course, we cannot let this segment go by without talking about March Madness. But hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's also Women's History Month. So we're about to flip the script, not just talking about the men's tournament. We're about to talk about this women's basketball tournament because this year's tournament has been fire. All right, and so today is Monday, the March 27th. So it's the second day for the semifinals. So you got, who is it playing later today? You have Maryland and South Carolina, as well as Ohio State and Virginia Tech. So it's going to be some great games tonight. But the games so far have been amazing. And I got my thoughts on it, but I also want to share the table as well. So Jazz and Shatara, what you got to say?
My first thing, it has nothing to do with the tournament, but also does. So you know how you get on Google in the morning and it gives you like your little articles based on how it stalks you. And so my first article was that something about, it said like Elite Eight, there's 8 records on the line for the women's Elite Eight. And 8 is my favorite number. So I'm like, should I play the lottery? 8? That's a lot of 8s in one sentence. And so I just feel like the women's basketball tournament is lucky for me. And I'm gonna go play the lottery.
I love that. Okay, when we talk about Caitlin Clark going off last night, off. Triple-double, first 30 and 40-point triple-double in both tournaments, right? Men's and women's. She went off.
And the crazy part about Caitlin is, it's bad when the opposing coach, I was watching the game last night, and Louisville's coaches, he just went like this. He just literally gave a shrug. It's like, hey,
Look what I did.
It was like the best defense you could ever play. She didn't have much space. She still got the shot up and still hit nothing but net. Like, she is truly amazing. So like the games have been awesome. I think tonight's game's gonna be great. I love what Coach Daly's doing with South Carolina. She's definitely created a dynasty there. And I would say one of the things I love about when I watch South Carolina play is not only the intensity they play with, but the respect for the game. I think it's some of those things people don't catch. The South Carolina player knocks their opponent down. Oftentimes they'll reach down to help them back up. You don't see that often within sports as well. So just to see what she's doing there, I think the game with them in Maryland will be awesome. The game between Virginia Tech and Ohio State is going to be an amazing game as well. So this women's basketball tournament has been awesome. And, shout out too, because the viewership has went up. I think I saw it's increased by about 27% or something like that. So I'm excited to see these semifinal games. I'm sorry, not semifinals. I guess the last Elite Eight games and see who does go on to the Final Four. And of course, I think we all can say that our man's bracket has been blown up. Mine's is blown up from day one, so it doesn't matter anyway. The women's basketball tournament has been fire. So hopefully everyone's been watching and good luck to those teams competing tonight.
There's definitely been March Madness. Definitely.
Madness this season has been an understatement because what's been going on in both of these tournaments has been craziness. So no, that's for sure. That is for sure.
So that concludes our hot tea segment for this month. Now it's time for us to share the stage. We told you all that you were going to want to listen to this month's episode, and now you get to see why. Today's guest is a 2019 Women Leaders in College Sports Nell Jackson Administrator of the Year recipient, a class of 2020 Sports Business Journal Women in Sports Game Changer, named one of the 50 most influential Black people in sports by USA Today. We've got the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Denver Broncos, Dr. China Jude. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so China, seeing as though this is a Moaa podcast, we have to start off by asking, as a former Moaa president, can you talk about the importance of Moaa and what Moaa means to you?
Oh my gosh. Mommy, first of all, thank you very much for having me again. Moa means a lot to me. I know that when I joined 16 years ago, I was new in the industry in regards to being an administrator because I transitioned from a coach to administration. And I was looking for a community of like-minded individuals, people who not only look like me, but people who have some of those same or similar lived experiences that I had when I was navigating through this space, trying to find myself. So connecting with Moa was huge. It started with me connecting with a board member, getting some assignments, helping her out, led to a committee opportunity, to leading a committee, as a part of the board, and then moving up the ranks to the presidency role. That was 16 years of just wonderful experience. And I definitely would never, regret any of those 15, 16 years. And I'm still a part of Moa and providing any support that I can. Anytime Moa calls, I'm there. And so it's a great experience.
Well, I'm grateful that
Thank
you pick up the phone when we call because you did it for this. So thank you.
I did it for you and Moa, yes. And I don't want Stan coming after me.
That part.
Thank you. So you have a pretty diverse and illustrious career. You were in the Navy Reserves, you were a volleyball coach, an AD, an SWA, and now a VP in the NFL. Was there ever a point along your journey when you questioned whether or not you'd reach your goal or make it to the type of position that you're in now?
That's a great question. I probably more question the industry than myself. One of the things that I can say is that I bet on myself more than anything. I know what I'm capable of doing. I know my resources, how I'm utilizing those resources to not only address the industry and support others, but I need my cup to be filled as well. And so how am I able to make sure that I'm serving others, taking care of myself, and making a major impact of the industry? And so that latter one, the industry, that's what I had questioned more than anything. But I knew that I wasn't going to give up. I needed to stay consistent and persistent as I'm navigating through this space.
I love that, Jim. Consistent and persistent.
So China, if folks don't know, they can see with the helmet in your background, you spent 3 years at the University of Wyoming. And can you please tell us more about that experience? Because when you think about Wyoming, you don't think of that as being a diverse place. So what was that like for you?
It was one of the best experiences that I had. Prior to Wyoming, I was the assistant vice president for athletics at Queens College in New York City. At that time, the 4th largest Division II in the nation. And being an athletic director there, overseeing 19 sports and being, right there in Queens, I can get to Manhattan at any time I want, and being engaged in a large urban environment was a great experience because I had all the resources in the world and great alumni who support us. But when I made that move to take a position cut and a pay cut to go to Wyoming, I wanted to make sure that I was still staying my authentic self. I'm from the Chicagoland area, but I wanted to stay authentic. And once again, going back to the previously answered question about how can I make sure my cup is filled? How can I impact the industry as well as supporting others? I truly believe that my time at Wyoming was well spent. I needed Wyoming as much as Wyoming needed me. And with the change of the national leadership at that time, in 2018, and then the tragic murder of George Floyd and the pandemic that hit all together, I knew that that was the place where I needed to be to help navigate our student athletes, as well as continue to engage our leadership, university, as well as athletic leadership in the spaces of diversity, equity, inclusion. It was a perfect timing. I think that a lot of people think because of their social life, there's not a lot of social life for people who look like us in a state like a Wyoming, some of those states in the Mountain West. It's what you make of it. It's what you make of it. I learned so much about myself navigating. For example, I taught myself how to sew during the pandemic, sewing masks. I just bought a sewing machine. I haven't touched a sewing machine, since I was 10. So I just bought a sewing machine and said, we're in a pandemic. The world is closed down. What can I do to make a contribution? And then I just really retaught myself how to sew and made like 250 masks and gave them to the football players. And then I taught myself about the Native American tribes in Wyoming and the history of University of Wyoming when it came to Matthew Shepard tragedy, as well as the Black 14. I mean, there is so much history that is happening in Wyoming. And so I really just embrace the state and the area. And I learned and I grew in that space. And, fortunately, it did pay off because my engagement with Moaa really helped increase the platform that was created for me to the point that the Broncos noticed. And so I'm very fortunate.
I love that, especially how you say, you made the sacrifice, for a job, a pay cut, a title cut to come out there, and how you're saying how Wyoming needed you just as much as you needed Wyoming, and how it's about what you make of it. Because I think a lot of us, when you're looking at an opportunity, you look at the school, the position, but also where is it at? Is this a place I can see myself living for 3, 5 plus more years? So that's awesome.
Yeah, and I want to also point out that the leadership, Tom Vernon, the athletic director, was someone who I admire and respect. And because we come from 2 different lived experiences, he and I really had very authentic, candid conversations about what it's like to be a Black woman, what it's like to be a white male. And we did not bite our tongue. We were very honest with each other, very respectful, very professional, but we were honest with each other. And so I would definitely say that when you're selecting that next school or that, that next leadership, that you have to be okay and honest with each other if you're going to be able to take the role, the department, the area to the next level. If we're about status quo, if people are selecting positions to maintain status quo, they have to ask themselves, do they want status quo? When people hire a China Jew, they know that it's not status quo. Even the Broncos know. They're like, we know about you. We read about you, trust us, we have researched you. We don't want status quo. And I love that.
That's awesome.
So you're already touching on it a little bit. You're already giving a little advice. So along the lines of what we're talking about, if there's a person of color in our industry who is looking for their next opportunity and they're trying to determine if they could be okay working in places like Wyoming that aren't really known for diversity, what other advice would you give them? I know you said think about like the state that you're in and use it for what's there, but what else would you advise on?
Yeah, I would really advise people on understanding why are you truly taking this job? And it is really important to understand that there are motivating factors. In my research, I talk about motivating factors of giving and why people give. They give for all different reasons, whether it's intrinsic or extrinsic, or whether it's through peer pressure or emergencies or, crisis or whatever. So it's the same thing about taking a job, making a decision. Why did you decide to go there? And there's no wrong or right. Some people say, hey, I'm just going to this position till we get to the next position. Some people feel that they're taking position because the leadership is someone who they respect and they admire and they want to learn from. Whatever the reason, you have to really look deep into yourself. But it still doesn't matter because you have to be great at the job. You have to be great. I make decisions because I want to make a significant difference. I've always been that way. Yes, you got to get paid, you got to pay the bills. Those are things that are natural. Those are the extrinsic. But I think that when a person is making some decisions because they want to impact an industry or impact a particular initiative or project or field, that's when you're going to lean in more. And then it's going to be a ripple effect of how you affect others. So it's a little bit of digging deep. So I always have 3 things that people need to take into consideration. And I've mentioned this in many other types of presentations. In order to be successful in having a trajectory is your knowledge, your proximity, and then your relationships. So you got to know how to do the job. You have to be in the places and spaces of those individuals who are good as well. And then you have to build those positive relationships so people can be able to see your work, not just only to talk about your characteristics, but can you show your work and those people who you're building those relationships with, who can speak on the good work that you're doing. So I think that those are the key areas to take into consideration as you navigate.
A little bit of a pivot here, but I read that Denver was on the top 50 cities that people are most likely to visit. They're going on vacation. What do you like about living in Denver?
Wow, it's clean air. Definitely clean air. Not as a high altitude as it was in Wyoming, because like in Wyoming, it was 7220 above sea level. Here in Denver, it's 5280. So I came down a little bit in terms of altitude. It is a great place to, I believe, raise a family. Even though my son is older and he has a family now, but it's a great place to raise a family. I think that it's a really good place, a good sports town. Very, very good sports town. As a matter of fact, I collaborate with the Nuggets as well as the Rockies, and we created a Black Employee Sports Network. And so we have a rotation between the 3 pro teams. Between those 3, we still have the Avalanche and some other teams, but these 3 pro teams where we get together all the Black employees, and then we connect in person for a happy hour. So it's a great sports town. The school system is good. It's a growing city. I mean, we have tech here. We have a lot of people from the West Coast, California, that are coming in on tech. So it's a lot of growth here. This is a great place to connect, whether you're single or you're with a family. And I think it's people don't realize Denver is never a thought process most of the time when it comes to Black and brown people. It's 26% Hispanic in the Denver metro area. Now the Black community is slowly increasing. We're talking about 8% of the Black community. But one of the things that I do like is when I came here, I was well received by the Black community. And there are a significant number of Black female executives and entrepreneurs here. I mean, it's just so wonderful to see women who look like me having their own business. And they're from all different industries. And I love it.
That's
That's
awesome.
awesome.
That's awesome. I definitely didn't know that Denver is that diverse. And I'll also say too, what's funny is that you talked about how the elevation is lower. It's not that often when you say Denver is lower compared to other states, other no other locations, or other cities or whatnot. So the fact that Wyoming had a higher elevation, like that's different.
Yes.
Pretty-
Yeah, I wind up having high altitude sickness when I went to Wyoming. I came to Denver. I'm like, okay, we're good. Plus, we have the airport that is the fourth busiest airport in America.
wow,
Yeah, DIA. Yes.
love it. I
I
love it.
will say I flew into Denver one time and I was waiting so long for my luggage. That definitely explains. I didn't think about it being the fourth largest.
It is. Yes.
So up next, China, as Shatar was talking about your background, like, so you have the unique experience of being a student athlete, a coach, an administrator, and an AD. So looking back at all those different seats you held within the world of college athletics, if you could change one thing about college athletics, what would it be and why?
Oh boy.
Hey, and don't hold back, China. Come on, our viewers want to hear. They want to hear. They want to hear from you. So, what would that thing
Yeah.
be?
Wow. There is so much. I have great concern about that senior woman administrator designation,
Mm.
the ADID designation. The senior minority administrator designate. I mean, these designations. I do not believe that there is a sincere intent to position those in these particular groups, position them in success. Even to the point, and I've held the SWA role, I believe, 4 times, 4 different institutions. I've held that role. And it hasn't evolved. It hasn't evolved in any kind of way. As a matter of fact, how I'm interpreting it anecdotally, that there are people who are trying to stay away from the SWA designation and to really be able to, whether they want to be the executive senior associate or the deputy, or, it's not a designation that is attractive for many women. And the ADID is very narrow in scope. I do understand and respect the intent for legislation to be passed in having that designation. I've had many conversations with the previous Minority Opportunities Interest Committee chair about that. I was the chair of the MOIC, before I became the president of Moaa. I get it. But these designations are not helpful. As a matter of fact, I see it as a checking the box strategy to say, well, at least we've made an effort to recognize marginalized people should be in having some type of designation, but we're not going to do anything with it. And that's my biggest concern. We should not have those designations to get people of color and women in senior leadership role. I believe that at this particular point, we have all worked hard, and we should not be selected based upon our ethnicity or our gender for these roles. You know we're good, so stop acting up. And that's my role, is to really have those kind of conversations. Although I'm in the pro space, I am still involved in the college space. I'm still a part of Lead One, and making sure that we are holding search firms and presidents accountable. I still have my grassroots group of the Women of Color Athletic Director Network, which we have in-person conversations. We'll have it at NACDA on June 13th, and to talk about how we can better strategize on how women of color specifically can be in senior level roles.
I love it. I love it. And there's so much to what you said there, right? You know, it's a title without power is just a title, you know, so you'll definitely make sure you give folks power and the voice at the table. And as you mentioned, there are so many examples you included of, there's people of color and women who have done amazing jobs, in athletics, whether it's in the AD role or deputy AD role, so we have plenty of examples of showing that we can do the job and we can excel at the role. So it's about making sure we get those names out there and advocate for them, and even like I said, I had the pleasure of doing this podcast with two amazing women of color here with Shatara and Jags, so the more we can do to advocate and the more we can do to show folks that, hey, we're more than just the title, we can definitely, add to the department. As you said, with your job at Wyoming, it wasn't only that you needed Wyoming, but Wyoming needed you. Yeah. And there's a lot of departments out there that can definitely benefit from having us on their staff and helping them grow and get to their goals that they have.
Yeah, but I want to also add, and I appreciate you mentioning that white men need to lean in. And how do we do that? That's the reason why I greatly appreciate Tom Berman. Tom Berman gave me a chance. He took a Division II athletic director, and he had confidence in himself to say, I'm okay with going to New York City, plucking this Black woman from Chicago and bringing her to Wyoming. You don't get a lot of people that do that. But Tom Berman did, and we talked about it. And I have nothing but loyalty for Tom Berman and the University of Wyoming, because they took a chance and we learned and we grew together. We did. And I learned from a great leader. We need more courageous leaders to not always follow the trend, because, in the NCAA, there's always these trends. When one person does it, then all of a sudden everybody follows. Who's going to be at the forefront? What university president, what athletic director to say, you know what, we've tried it this way the whole time. Let's do something different. And that's what Wyoming did. They did something totally different. And it was interesting when I walked in the door, the first senior staff meeting, I walked in the door, and Tom and I still laugh about this to this very day. There were 12 white men. Most of them were bald, right? And I was sitting there seeing this fact, and then me. And I just walked in and I'm like, hi. And they were like, yeah, we need some diversity. We need some diversity. I said, yeah, because I have hair too.
Hold on, China. What you trying to say here? I'm a little offended right now. What you trying to say?
No, but it was something they brought up. They were like, yeah, we all know they're here. So I didn't even bring that up. They brought that up. And it was hilarious. I would say not all of them, the majority of them didn't. But it was just kind of funny how it took me to walk in the door for all of them to collectively realize that there was a lack of diversity because they were so used to it. Mm. And then when they saw something different, the epiphany, came on. So that's important. We really need to find more courageous white men and women to just look at something different. And I know that people have a tendency of saying, well, she's not going to last. If we hire her, she may not last. I lasted 3 years. And to be honest with you, I wasn't planning to leave. But when the Broncos call, what are you going to do? Like, no, I don't want to be in an NFL team that won 3 Super Bowls. No, I'm going to, it's like 2.5 hours up the street. So it's not like I had to jet set across the country. I did that from New York to Wyoming. So when the Broncos called, that really showed volumes of the good work that Wyoming did. Because the former team president said, if you can do it in Wyoming, and he did mention Moaa. They did. They were like, tell us about Moaa and what is it about that organization? And they read so much about Moaa. They said, can you do it here? This is a new position. Can you do it? I said, I'm bringing Moaa, MOIC, and 1,100 NCAA institutions with me to the Broncos to start until I can navigate in the NFL space. And they were like, let's do it. So kudos to Moaa.
Love it. The good to Moaa also say commend you as well, for not only what you're doing there with the Broncos and the newly created position, but even as you mentioned at Wyoming, you were the only person of color, the only woman to step into that room. And for you to as you said earlier, to bet on yourself and go in there with courage and not to conform to what they were doing, but transform the atmosphere there was just amazing. So, a round of applause for you as well.
Thank you. While respecting their culture, though. That's important. You have to respect the culture that you walk in.
Mm. All right, China. We're gonna switch it up a little bit now. We're gonna get a little more lighthearted. All right, if you could,
we weren't already lighthearted.
We could talk for another 40 minutes on some of the stuff you said, but I'm a little on this. Time is of the essence. If you could go on a dream vacation, where would it be and why?
I'm going to pick two places. One place I've already been, so I would love to go back to Italy. Italy, Milan was awesome. So I would return to Italy, which is very realistic. And where I've never been, and I don't have any specifics yet, but I've been hearing a lot about Africa. Don't know exactly where, but that's a trip that I knew growing up as a kid. My grandmother would go to Africa on a regular basis, but my mom would not allow me to go because I was too young. So I hope that I can spend a week or two somewhere in Africa.
What did you love about Milan?
I just felt like I belonged. I felt at peace, kind of similar peace that I felt when I went to Wyoming. Of course, the fashion.
Yes.
Fashion. I know that so much history in Italy, and I went with the volleyball team when I was at Wyoming. We went there. Went to multiple places, Austria and Venice and Milan and just a lot of different places. And so I said, I have to return. There's more to learn, yes. And London is great too. I've been there too. That was great too.
You alluded to this some already in that you weren't really looking for an opportunity while you were at Wyoming. The opportunity came looking for you, but what led you to making the decision to transition to professional sports, and how has that experience been for you so far?
Well, I think now this is a testimony. I interviewed for about 25 Division I athletic director positions and didn't get any. Didn't get any of them. And one of the things that was very disheartening to hear in many regards, not all, many, that I didn't have football experience, which was extremely disappointing. And so I knew that no matter, it was either a football experience or be fundraising experience. And fundraising experience, that was not true, because I did have a significant amount of fundraising experience. Because at Queens College, we had to fundraise 75% of our budget. So it was ongoing to the point I hired a associate AD external relations. I wrote a grant for a development director. We really engaged our alumni. I mean, we were doing very well when it comes to those areas of development and external relations. And I just found myself at a particular point where it was a waste of time to hit my head against the same ceiling over and over and over and over again. That, they say, what is insanity? Doing the same thing, expecting a different outcome. Well, I decided that I'm not going to that route anymore. And I knew that it was time to do something different. And I felt that I've hit my ceiling when it came to college sports. And, you know, just had conversations with a search firm that had nothing to do with college sports. They had no college sports experience, and had the opportunity to speak to a person, a company that had fresh eyes. When sometimes, and yes, I'm about to say something about search firms, and many of these search firms know how I feel. There are biases. Search firms have biases just like athletic directors, just like university presidents. Search firms will sometimes utilize that same list and recycle some of those same people who are they're most comfortable with. And it's not helpful to especially people of color. So I went to a different search firm who knew nothing about me other than what they read on social media and articles or whatever. And they're the ones that recommended for me to apply. And that's what I did.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so China, I have a last question. You know, I think, you know, some might consider it to be a highly important question. You know, so for you, all right, I take it that you love music and that you enjoy music.
Of course, I used to be a radio disc jockey.
Okay, so yeah, this is definitely right there. Yeah. All right. So you have to choose between going to 1 or 3 concerts. All right. Option number 1, Prince, rest in peace. Option number 2, an R&B combo of Boyz II Men, Jodeci, and TLC. And then option number 3, the Queen Bee, Beyonce.
Yeah, I had to think about that one. My first gut reaction was going after the Queen Bee. I mean, but Prince is on a whole nother level. I mean, that man just sparks emotions in so many different ways, from Let's Go Crazy to Purple Rain to, you know, just everything, to the point that growing up with Prince and knowing that his style has been an influence with a lot of different musicians. Like I went to her concert and I'm listening to her and I'm like, that could be Prince's child right there. You know, she plays like so many instruments and just her style, you know, his style of music and his genre influences so many. I'm going with Prince.
I like it.
But I love Boyz II Men, TLC, and all that. I'm all for them. Trust me, I can jam on them. But Prince is the GOAT.
Awesome.
Good answer. Good answer. Good answer. Well, China, you mentioned Prince being an influencer. I'd like to also say that you are an influencer. And I want to thank you so much for continuing to blaze trails and lead by example and pass your wisdom and your knowledge down to other women. It's Women's History Month, and you're just the perfect person to have on. And I really want to thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I really wish you, each one of you, and the entire Moaa organization much success, and anything that I can do to continue to drive the mission, don't hesitate to call. Love everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, so that was such an amazing time though, hearing from China. We really love that. And now we're on to the last segment, the mic drop thoughts. So this is where we all share what's on our mind and what we want to end the show with. So who wants to go first?
I can go first. It's Women's History Month. This is our Women's History Month episode. And I just want to shout out our incoming president, Dr. Renee Miles Payne. She just had her AD press conference last Thursday, and there was something that she said that just really has been on my mind since she said it last week. And I feel like it's just a great thing to say that just really entails what the woman's plight basically. But someone asked her, they said that you're the second female AD here. What does it mean to have this opportunity to be in this industry that's continuing to move forward? And her answer, she said, we've increased our numbers, specifically minority athletic directors. It's hard on this trail to get to this level. It's difficult, but we can do the job. We're built to do the job. We're moms, we're sisters, we're wives. So we know what it's like to do multiple things with less. And that's a literal mic drop.
I love it. I love it. Definitely shout out to Dr. Payne. We are also proud of our incoming president and
Yes.
for her to spread her wings and continue to show what makes her such a great person, a great leader.
I love that. Thanks for sharing. I was thinking about my mic drop thought, and something I just kept coming back to was the idea of showing gratitude. I just feel like we're at that point in the semester where sports are overlapping or ending. You're working in academics. We just got out of midterms. There's a grind coming in May. And when you feel yourself like not being able to get your head out of the sand or all the things that are happening, just really coming back to your core and showing the gratitude for the things around you and remembering, mindset is everything. So focusing on the positive always makes for a better picture.
I love it. Thanks, Jazz. Definitely thankful and grateful for you too, like family. So
You're being so sweet this episode. Wow.
don't worry. I want y'all to send my check in the mail. I was joking.
Maybe you wasn't supposed to say that.
No, all right. No, so for me, for my mic drop thoughts, I want to, in honor of Women's History Month, I want to put out a challenge. And my challenge is to the bias and unfair expectations that's placed on women in the work field, but especially in college athletics, right? As I mentioned on the last podcast, my goal is to be an athletics director. So when I was at the Big Ten, prior to me coming back on campus, I reached out to a lot of ADs just to talk about, hey, what should be the ideal next position for me? Also, what advice did you have? And one of the questions that I asked about was, can you talk about your work-life balance? And the crazy thing to me is a majority of the men said that I did not do a good job when it came to work-life balance, especially when it came to raising my kids. My wife pretty much did that. And it's crazy to me how in the world of college athletics, especially, where we look at women and we expect for them to excel at the job, but at the same time, they're supposed to do what pop culture expects of a woman as well. They're supposed to go home and cook dinner and clean up the house and take care of the kids and whatnot. But we don't put that same expectation on men. And to me, it's time to change that. We as an industry, especially we as leaders, we have to change the culture to where it's expected for men to leave the office early, just like women, and make sure you go home and take care of your kids. Make sure you go home and cook dinner. Make sure you go home and set the atmosphere for your wife to come home to as well. It should not always be placed on women. And it's been crazy to me as well, because I even had someone tell me where she was questioned about whether or not she could do the job because she had children, and that has to change. So with it being Women's History Month, we always advocate and celebrate for equality and equity when it comes to women. But to me, I say it's time to stop just advocating and celebrating, and it's time to practice what we preach. And once we do that and set that culture, things can really start to change within this industry. So thanks everyone for joining us today. We are really excited about next month's show as well. If you have any ideas, please don't hesitate to reach out to Jazz, Shatara, or I for any potential guests you want to see on the show. But as for the three of us, that's all for us. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening.